Please consider going over to my Patreon page and help me to support and grow this channel. After last week's unboxing, it's now time to start this build. To start the build off, I'm going to glue the front and rear bumper onto the body and then start correcting some panel lines, making them a bit deeper and getting the car ready for primer. In order to properly align the front bumper, I put the hood in place, then placed the bumper and glued it together. With the bumpers glued to the body, I moved on to fixing and correcting some of the body pieces. First of all, starting with all those mold lines. Just funnily enough, I could only find 2 on the front fenders and 2 on the front bumper, and that's all I was able to find. The other ones were probably really well hidden inside some of the panel lines, and I couldn't find them. So just gonna remove these ones and then move on to fixing some of the panel lines, some of the gaps, and adjusting the panel lines by making them a bit deeper and wider with a scriber. With the bumpers properly aligned to the body and those panel lines all nice and corrected, I moved on to sanding the body fully with some 600 grit sandpaper, cleaned it off, removed all the dust from the panel lines, and moved on to applying a couple of coats of primer. So as always, I'm just gonna start with those easy to forget, hard to reach spots and then move on to the rest of the body. After applying this first coat, I let it dry for about 10 minutes, applied a second coat, again let that dry for another 10 minutes, and applied a third and final coat to let that dry for about 30 minutes to an hour before moving on to applying 3 coats of Carrara white. And I know that this was not really good footage. It was a bit overlit and it was a bit too dark outside, so the contrast wasn't really there and the camera didn't really want to pick it up anyway, as it was a white on top of a light gray, so you couldn't really see much difference at all. So I'm just going to show the first coat here applied really quickly as the footage is fast forwarded, and then move on to the second stage of this white. So in total, I applied 3 coats of the Porsche Carrera white, waiting about 10 minutes in between coats, and then let it dry for about a half hour before moving on to applying 2 light coats of pearl tinter, making this white a pearl white. And again, it was getting darker outside, the light inside was a bit too bright. It was a sort of clear over the white, so you couldn't really see anything. Just a quick clip of this footage, all fast forwarded, as it wasn't really any difference in the second clip, so I just figured I'd show something instead of nothing. So after I applied that pearl tinter, I set the body aside for about an hour, let it dry off at room temperature, masked everything off, and then painted the roof, front splitter or diffuser, and the rear diffuser in a gunmetal gray to simulate some of the carbon fiber for the front and rear. And later on I will apply a carbon fiber decal on the roof. After finishing off this third coat of the gunmetal gray, I set it aside to dry off for a bit, then removed all the masking tape carefully and let the rest of the paint cure for about a day before I started applying the carbon fiber decals and other decals all around. If you like these videos, please consider heading over to my Patreon page and throwing me a couple of your spare bucks every month to help me out make more content for you, up the quality, and maybe even do some other stuff as well, and ideally quit my job and go for this full-time, giving me the chance to make 4 videos a week and maybe even do some builds on request and maybe even sell some of my work.